Hi there, this is Walter from Zimstones by Walter, and today I'm coming to you on behalf of the Happy Handicrafter design team. And I'm going to be working with a digital download kit that I really love. It's the Dark Fantasy Romance Kit, and there's two versions. There's Kit 1 and Kit 2. They contain a lot of the same images, but Kit 2 does have some different images that were made. The Happy Handicrafter herself, Jenny Morris, did a great job with this kit. Some really beautiful images, very gothic in nature. Some are very fantastical in nature. Just some really nice old looking papers and tags. I've already used Kit 1 in creating some Gothic wedding cards, and you can see that on my Instagram, Zimstones by Walter. As well as there is a video here on my YouTube channel about creating one of those cards. Today, the focus is going to be on creating a junk journal, but it's going to be a junk journal in the theme of a wedding album, telling the story of this couple, the dark, romantic story of this couple. So let's get started. Okay, so the first thing you'll want to do is print out the pages that you want to use in your project. I printed out images from both Kit 1 and Kit 2, and I used 65-pound white cardstock. It still has some flexibility and some give, but it's a little bit stronger than just traditional printer paper or copy paper. You certainly can use that if that's your preference. One thing I like about the cardstock versus the copy or printer paper is if you mount that image onto some black cardstock, you're not going to see the black coming through. With regular printer paper, you will see some black coming through. I also just like how sturdy the cardstock is, the 65-pound. I'm also going to be creating my covers, and for that, I'm using 110-pound black cardstock. It just has a little bit more of a body to it. It won't bend as much, and it'll make a nice cover. So I'm going to get started on doing that. For making the cover and some of the pages, I'm going to be using these decal edge dies that were part of a kit that I had bought on Amazon for journaling, and it's called a torn edge DIY paper cards. I'm really not even sure of who the maker is, but I like the way that it has the get those separated. It has the decal edge, but it also has a spot over here for making the holes for binding. So that's going to be really nice for the covers. And then for some of the pages, I'll be using this die, which is about this, just a little bit smaller than that one, to cut out the images that I want to put onto the paper. As you can see, that cover die fits a half of an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, cut in half. Fits it well. This is basically the same size that you would do for an A2 card base when you cut the 8.5 by 11 sheet in half. So now that I have that, I'm going to run it through my die machine, and I'm going to create some front and back covers. Okay, so I've cut out my covers, and I've also cut out the pieces that I'm going to have on the inside of each of the covers, the inside front and back. But I want to do a little distressing to, even though it's black and I'll have another image here, I want to just make it look older. So I'm going to go ahead and use some Tim Holtz Distress Spray inks and get some colors on here just to age it up a bit. And I'll walk you through that. So I keep an old box that I do all of my spraying in. And what I'm going to use is some Distress Spray Stain that is Vintage Photo. And then I'm going to follow up with some Distress Spray Stain that is Lost Shadow. And just do a combination of those two just to add a little bit of age and character onto these black pieces. So we're going to let that dry and we will see how it looks. Okay, so that's dried and I like where it is. It's looking a little bit like, leathery and worn and aged, but I still want to add a little bit more. And I'd like to maybe get just a little bit more of like a dark brown on there. So I'm now going to use some walnut spray stain, and I'm going to spray some of that on there. Mist it around. And in addition to the walnut stain, I'm going to take just a little bit of this rusty hinge to get kind of like a little bit of an orangey in with that brown. Not a lot, just a little. Just to add a little something. And then the last thing I'm going to do is put just a touch of a metallic shimmer for aging. And I'm going to use this mica spray. It is a tarnished brass. So let's spray just a bit, not a lot, just a bit on there. And we'll let that dry and see how that looks. Okay, they're dry and I absolutely love these. I think they look great. On the outside, you just got like some aging. It's more interesting than just black. And these sprays also add a little bit of texture to the paper. And I just think the effect is really cool, and it does look old. And as we start to assemble it, I think you're going to see that it adds so much character to the overall album. For the cover, I took this image from the kit of the bride and groom, and I sprayed it with some antique linen spray stain from Tim Holtz. I also used a little bit of the it's like a coppery type of mica spray, just to give it a little bit of some aging. As you can see right here, I just love that look of it not being the pure white. And what I'm going to do is I have a frame from Pink Fresh Studios. It's part of their Ornate Rectangle Frame Essentials die set. I'm going to use the biggest one, and I'm going to cut a frame out. I'm then going to frame the couple, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut down here so that I can use these flowers and the bow for something else that I have planned, and to be able to then fit into the frame, and we're going to mount it onto the front cover. So I've cut out my frame from some copper cardstock, and it's going to fit the image perfectly. Don't get rid of this piece, which is the center from when you cut it out. If we don't use it in this project, it can be used in another one. So definitely keep that to the side. I also cut my image apart because all I really wanted was the couple to get that framed. So that's all set. I'm saving this piece because I have an idea for it. I'll be using that in the journal. So more to come on this, placing it to the side. I am also placing to the side the other pieces that I had cut off to shrink the image of the couple down to size. These can be used as borders or something, if not now, with this particular project, with another. So I'm going to keep those as well. I'm going to do some additional steps to the frame, and that's what I'll be showing you next. I'd like to get a little bit of aging and oxidation onto the frame, since this is supposed to be older. And so I'm going to use a couple of products, possibly a third, to help with that. I'm going to use some Distress Grit Paste. It's opaque, it's kind of a whitish color. And I'm also going to use some Distress Paint in the Salvaged Patina color. Mix those together and just kind of brush it on a bit to give it that oxidized look. The other thing I may end up using is this Distress Foundry Wax, which also you apply it to the frame, and when you apply some heat to it, it'll kind of melt and create some mottled type effects as well. So I'm going to start with the grit paste and the paint. So all I'm going to do is take a paintbrush, take just a little bit, because I don't know how much I'm actually going to use. I can always mix some more. Take some of that, and I'm going to take just a drop of this to start. Let's see what we get there. but it's going to be that nice kind of bluish, greenish, oxidized metal look that happens to metal over time when it reacts with the elements and ages. And the more you keep mixing, the more you'll get that color incorporated. And you don't want it to be that really dark color. I think a lighter is nice. So that's why you want to mix it really well. And then all I'm going to do is just lightly come over the frame and just brush it. The grit paste gives it a little bit of texture. And you don't have to do the whole frame. You can just do sections of it. This will dry. And you know, you do it as you like it. You might want to go heavier in some areas, a little bit lighter in others. But it's just to give it that look that, you know, it's been around for a while. It's a little bit older, to go with the motif of the journal that we're making. Again, just a little bit. The other thing that we can do is you want to shake this really well, and you can apply it with a paintbrush, or I do just myself, just drops here and there. Just wherever you want. Again, just to add some texture, add some different kind of color to it. And I'm going to get my heat tool. So I have my heat tool and stand set up, and I'm just going to turn it on, let it warm up, and then just run the frame under it quickly. See about letting that melt and see about letting it incorporate into the frame. Okay, so that is done. And as you can see, it just kind of melts in. It gives it a little bit of texture. And I think what I'll do is, with all that dry, I'm going to go ahead and take just a little bit more of this paste and just kind of lightly brush over it. And you don't have to do it everywhere, but it definitely helps it cling. And again, it just gives it some age, makes it look like it's been around for a while. And I'm pretty happy with that. Took the image, put some double-sided tape on the back of it, and adhered it down to the front cover. I then took our frame, put some double-sided foam tape along it because I want to add some depth there. Why not? We have the space. Now I'm going to just decide where I would like to place it so that the entire image is framed. Right about there is looking pretty good. I think I just need to move it over a tad. And that's the nice thing with the double-sided foam tape. You can kind of maneuver it a bit and make it flexible. And that is where I want it. So there is the wedded couple with that added on. The next thing is I make a bunch of embellishments myself. These are really easy to make. So I have some gravestones, I have some skulls, and I feel like the skulls go really well with this particular motif. And so how I make them is I have the silicone molds. You can buy them at Michael's, or I'm sure even the dollar store, many different stores. And I take some foam moldable clay. It's clay that they use in like making costumes. It's very soft. As you can see, I can push down on it. I put the foam clay into the molds, let them dry. I pop them out. Once I popped them out, I sprayed them with some antique linen spray stain as well as some lost shadow spray stain, and that's the result. It's as simple as that. I think it looks really, really good. And what I want to do is affix one right at the top of the frame. So I'm going to take some craft glue and I'm going to put one right there. Last thing I'd like to do for the front cover is I have this label. So I'm going to, it's a sticker that came, I believe, from Grabby, from a crafting box that I had purchased from them. It can be a little tricky, but I take my pick tool and I separate that. And I'm going to put that label down underneath the photo. Let's make sure that's kind of straight. And my idea for this, I want it kind of centered. Let's get that applied. And it's going to darken it up, which is nice. And my idea for this is to then write something like our wedding and a year. And the idea for a year came from some of the inside pages that we're going to use inside of the journal. There's actually a date of Wednesday, August 6th, 1874. So I think if, like, put our wedding 1874, that would look kind of cool. And just make it further look like their wedding album. So I went ahead and took one of these fine lined dark gray pens and wrote right onto the sticker, Our Wedding 1874. I decided to use the dark gray rather than the black because I wanted it to look aged, and the dark gray also kind of looks like it's graphite, so it could have been in pencil rather than ink. So the front cover is all set. On the inside, I took one of the registry pages of guests. You can see that Mr. Frank Martin from Boston was in attendance, and George Winslow, and some folks from Worcester and Providence, which is really kind of cool because that's right in the area that I live. Another guest from Boston. So I took that page. I had already cut it out with the page die and double-sided tape, adhered it down. I had also run some of this tea dye distress ink around the edges to kind of spruce it up a bit. I had told you that I was saving this piece, and so my idea for it is to turn it into, since I cut it out of the image of the couple, I'm going to put it on the inside with some double-sided foam tape, set it up, and that way we can use it as a pocket to put perhaps like a tag or something in. So I'm going to do run the double-sided foam tape along both edges and the bottom side and adhere that down. So I do like the idea of having a tag that will fit into that pocket. And so I cut out one of the tags from the kit. It's really interesting. It's some writing and it has a lot of grunge on there. And we're going to add a little bit of more grunge, but we're also going to add some other dimension to it as well. I want to distress the edges of the tag to really make it look old and as if it was like ripped out or just, maybe even just frayed, the edges frayed over time. And there are tools you can buy to do this, but honestly, I find that a plastic knife with a serrated edge, all you have to do is go against the side of the paper and it makes that kind of an edge for you. So I'm just going to go around and do that to kind of distress it and give it that age and that look. And if it moves around on you, you just move with it. Because again, this is old. It's not supposed to look perfect. And it's your creation, so you make it look the way that you want it to look. There's no one way. There's no one right way. You do whatever it is you'd like, because that's part of the joy of creating, I think, is not only the relaxation that I get from it, but also the pride in making decisions, using my intuition to decide this is how I want this to look, kind of that gut feeling that I get when I'm crafting. And so there we go. We've roughed up those edges. I'm now going to take the tea dye distress ink pad, and I'm just going to run it along that just to give it some age. I truly love the way that looks. And it's not gonna mess up what you just did with that distressing on the side. It's actually, this is going to enhance it, I think, and make it look even better, even older, even more vintage. And so there we have it. There is our tag. But I want to add something to it. And for another project I had been working on for a card, I had made an extra flower. If you'd like to see how I made this, I actually have a video on my YouTube channel, Zimstones by Walter, and it was for an Alta-New Academy card that I had made. And I had made one in pink and one kind of in a more of a red color. It's a dahlia. It was made with dies, so it's layered pieces cut out from a die. But what I did is I took some HVAC metal tape, that aluminum type of tape, put it onto white cardstock, cut out the flowers with the and then on the metal side, I went ahead and colored them with markers, alcohol markers, spritzed it with a bit of rubbing alcohol, and it created this kind of very old looking mottled effect. And I'm going to mount that onto the tag, and that's what's going to live inside our pocket there. I went ahead and added the flower, the dahlia, with some double-sided tape and some craft glue, adhered it onto the flower, onto the tag, and slid it into the pocket. I like the way that looks. It gives it just a little pop of color. So now we'll move on to the next page. So I had my other pages already assembled, and how I created them is I used the page die that has the holes on the side so that we'll easily be able to bind them. And I took some of the pages and just cut them in half and then cut each side out using that die. I went ahead and put them together, front side, back side, using double-sided tape. Ran some of the tea dye ink around the edges. And since I have some of this grit paste with the tealish color left over, I thought it would be fun just to go through the pages and randomly just kind of add a little bit more detail to them like that. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going to go through each page before I start to design them, and just randomly here and there add a little bit of some additional color in there, a little bit of additional detail and aging. Why not? Why waste? Use it up. Something else I decided to do, use some of that grit paste with the little bit of that salvaged patina paint mixed in, and I just brushed it on the flower a little bit just to kind of age that and dull that down a bit. I think it looks great. For these remaining pages, what I'm going to do now that I have them all assembled, and I also sprayed in some instances a little bit of some antique linen distress spray stain on the pages just to kind of give it that kind of look as well, is I'm going to go through, select the images that I want to place on the pages, and get those pages done. I'm not going to go page by page with you because what you create may be different than what I create. Again, this creative process, artistic process, is all about you and what sparks joy with you and what brings you joy. And not to sound too cliche, but you do you. You bring it to the level that you want to bring it to. Okay, so I have finished my junk journal. In order to bind it, I had put the pages together, And I took some lace that I purchased on Amazon, and I sprayed it with some antique linen and lost shadow spray stains. Once it was dry, I just tied, around one and then wove it through and created the binding out of that. I also took a piece to be able to tie around to help keep it closed. You've already seen that front page. On the next page, we have that beautiful pocket that we used with the bottom half of that picture. We have the tag that we made with the red dahlia. And then I have this little metal embellishment that I glued down there. Next page, we have a picture of the wedding suit and gown, a little bit about the tailors who made the wedding clothing, and a little bit of pearl activity down the bottom. Next page, we have the wedding cake, and I have this, it's supposed to be like a wax seal, but it's made out of metal. It's from Tim Holtz, and inside it says, "For I am the dreamer, life is the dream." I thought it was very fitting for this dark fantasy romance wedding album. Next page, we have this frame that was on vellum, and I cut out one of the flowers and put it behind the vellum just to kind of make it look a little bit older and a little shaded. And then I have this flower that I made with some foam clay that I put into a flower mold. And once it was dry, I painted it with some gold paint and put a little bit of tarnish on it. Next page, we have these little stickers, if you will, of the gown, the floral bouquet, and the shoes. I put some jewels on there as well. Next page, we have the wedding champagne for the toast. On the side are some embellishments that I made with foam clay that I painted. And then we also have a little advertisement for the wine and spirit merchants who provided the champagne. Next page, we have this really cool background with a doily with a flower. We have this tag that has the couple on their way to the mansion after getting married. And we have this mysterious looking book of magic perhaps. And we have a sticker that says, "Ask the cards." Next page, we have a picture of the bride and groom with a gold butterfly, this amulet with a pink stone, and a sticker that says "The sun, moon, and stars." I thought that was very appropriate given the theme of this particular junk journal. Next page, we have a flower on a tag with flowers, and then just some other tags that are arranged on the page. Then we have a very old cast iron lantern with a clock and some floral arrangements. I really like this page that has a skull with the wedding rings. I put a gold butterfly, a little jewel in the skull's eye, and then there's stickers of the sun, the moon, and the stars to keep that theme going. Then on this last page, we have a crow with some roses, and we have a gold rose that I made with the foam clay and a mold, and I painted gold and added just a little bit of aging to it, as well as a tag with the couple that says "It's in the stars." And then finally on the back cover, we have the picture of the couple at the gazebo in which they were married, with some gravestones on either side of that gazebo. Perhaps they're family members who have passed, and a skull at the top as well. Again, keeping with that dark fantasy romance theme, blending into the skull that was part of the kit. I think it looks really great overall. Then when you close it, you can go ahead and use this lace to tie it and secure it. Overall, this was a really fun project. I'd love to see if you purchase this kit and you make a junk journal with it. Would love to see what you make. You can always add a comment onto Instagram and you can mention me. It's zimstones.by.walter. I hope I inspired you. This was a lot of fun. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Be sure to check out this kit by the Happy Handicrafter, as well as all of her other kits. They are really amazing. Take care. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.